Welcome, history fanatics, to Mrs. Heron's video playlist, where you will get the best of the best in social studies. Okay, we're beginning Unit 2, A Nation Divided, the Civil War. The goal is to explain the American Civil War and its causes, and the two chapters are Chapter 14 and 15, The Nation Divided and the Civil War. For this first section, we're focusing on the growing tensions over slavery. This is again in Chapter 14, Nation Divided, 1846 to 1861. We're in our new book, America, the History of Our Nation, and the guiding question for this lesson is, why did conflicts arise over the issue of slavery in the territories after the Mexican-American War?
In the 1840s, America was a pretty young country, and it was hungry to expand. President James K. Polk was especially eager to acquire more territory. He believed in manifest destiny. That's the idea the United States had a duty to expand westward across the North American continent. There was a lot of incentive for American settlers to go west. They could spread religion, strike it rich in business, or just get a fresh start. Needless to say, America's neighbor, Mexico, wasn't thrilled about the westward expansion craze. Both countries were already on thin ice. Mexico was bitter about losing Texas to the U.S. after it won its independence in 1836. President Polk wanted California and New Mexico too, and he offered Mexico $30 million to purchase them. But they refused to sell. But hang on, conquering the West was America's manifest destiny, right? So Polk wouldn't take no for an answer. He picked a fight, sending troops to occupy a disputed area of the Texas and Mexico border. And when American troops and the Mexican cavalry clashed, Polk seized the opportunity to declare war on Mexico on May 13, 1846. Ultimately, Mexico was unprepared for war. Its internal politics were just a mess, and its cavalry couldn't measure up against the expertise of the U.S. military. After 2 years of fighting, Mexico was defeated, and in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, it ceded a third of its territory to the U.S., areas that include modern-day Utah, California, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. The Mexican-American War had a major impact because it resulted in one of the largest territorial expansions of the United States. It also launched the careers of a few generals you may have heard of, future U.S. President Zachary Taylor and Civil War titans Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant.
While this new gain in territory may have been a tremendous victory in the expansion of our new nation, it also divided the country more than ever. You see, prior to the Mexican-American War, there was a balance of free states and slave states. However, after the war in 1848, both sides were eager to claim the huge territory as theirs. Northerners didn't want slavery to expand, and Southerners saw the new land as a profitable means of expansion. For this reason, 2 years earlier, Northerners such as David Wilmot of Pennsylvania took preliminary action to prevent the territory from being claimed by the South. He proposed that it should be illegal for any new territory gained by the war to have slavery. This plan was called the Wilmot Proviso. The Wilmot Proviso passed in the House of Representatives, yet it was killed at the Senate level. Needless to say, the South was not happy about the idea that Northerners were trying to prevent the expansion of slavery, and ultimately they felt targeted by the North. The disagreement about the Wilmot Proviso led to the development of a new political party called the Free Soil Party. It was a combination of anti-slavery Democrats and Whigs. The party name derived from the primary belief that new territory should be free soil, meaning there would be no slavery, it would be banned. The candidate chosen was Democratic Martin Van Buren. However, he was eventually defeated in 1848 by General Zachary Taylor, who was a Mexican-American hero that represented the Whig Party. Even though he lost the overall election, Martin Van Buren beat his opponent, Lewis Cass, for the Democratic nomination. Cass could not have been more politically different than Van Buren. He proposed allowing the people in new territories to vote whether or not they would be free or slaveholding. This was a process called popular sovereignty. The following year, California had enough residents to gain statehood because of the gold rush. Northerners argued that it should be admitted as a free state because it was north of the Missouri Compromise seen here. However, Southerners felt that this would lead to the North having too much political power, so they threatened to secede from the nation if California was admitted as a free state. Another issue was that Northerners wanted the government to ban the slave trade in Washington, D.C., and Southerners argued that Northerners should be forced to return fugitive slaves. Then in 1850, the Kentucky Senator Henry Clay proposed a compromise. This was the same senator that proposed the Missouri Compromise. South Carolina Representative John C. Calhoun did not support Clay's compromise. He argued that it made the South vulnerable to Northern attacks on slavery. And in his last speech that he ever delivered, Calhoun threatened secession if the nation did not agree to protect their state's rights to own slaves. His opposition, Senator Daniel Webster of Massachusetts, argued in support of Clay's compromise, stating that it would reunite the Union. The country was hanging by a single thread, and the outcome would lay on the shoulders of Clay's compromise. Okay, for today we talked about the Mexican-American War, which ended in 1848, the Wilmot Proviso, the Free Soil Party, popular sovereignty or people voting directly on an issue, the Gold Rush, secession, fugitives, Henry Clay, John C. Calhoun, and Daniel Webster. I'll see you next time.